Welcome one, welcome all to episode 208 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Saturday, December 16th, 2023. I'm your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logun. Alongside the captain today, we are joined by both Kevin Ainsworth and Jampack Sam, hosts of Project XTalk from Save Game Media, a fellow Xbox podcast, to bring news to Xbox gamers. We are excited to have them with us. Today, we are chatting about a major price drop for Xbox Series X. Xbox is rolling out a year in review feature for their gamers, and several games have received seasonal updates, including one that's been years in the making. As always, we hope you enjoy the show. Logan, we like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made our gaming weeks better. But first, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I am super stoked for this episode. This is the Chinese finger trap of our two podcasts. We're stuck together for the next hour, for better or for worse, and it's going to be hilarious. So I can't wait.
Some might call it the banjo ambush. I think we're calling
the
this
banjo
one.
Ambush. Yeah,
you know,
could be.
Of course, we are also joined by Sam and Kevin, and I'm stoked to have that. Kevin Ainsworth from Project XTalk, how are you? And do you have any words of kindness to distribute this week?
I'm doing great. My words of kindness, I would extend them to you two for the invite to come on XCP. Always love coming guesting on other shows, especially this time of the year when it's less news focused and we really get to talk about some games and some fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. There you go, man. Well, we're glad to have you here for sure. Long time coming, and I enjoy when we cross over in Discords and on socials and comment sections. Those always make my week, so that's awesome. Of course, Jampack Sam, the man with the voice, and I don't even know how else to say it, Sam, but your voice is sultry, and some might call it intoxicating. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Yeah, happy to be here. I know I will also say that my words of kindness are for both of you for inviting us on. And as a backstory, when I first got my Series X, I started looking for other Xbox podcasts to kind of bake into the routine. Then I found XEP, and then it was just history from there. So I'm very excited to be here. It's in my weekly rotation. And we're very hyped to finally do the crossover here. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. Logan, in introducing our guests, I don't think I gave you a moment to say your words of kindness.
Mine go out to Space Admiral Ors. He's a good buddy of mine. He actually, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but he got me he got me a Gundam, but one of my other friends got me a crest plaque. So I should shout out both of them. So I was talking anime with Space Admiral Ors. He introduced me to a really good anime, and then he sent me a Gundam to put together that's from the actual anime. And I was like, oh, that's cool. How the heck do you do that with other anime? Because that's awesome. So, and then the ship crest I got from a good buddy of mine, Caleb. So shout out to both of them for being really cool and sending me gifts that I did not anticipate. But now I've got a Keelhauled podcast ship crest to have on my wall. It's fantastic.
I love it, man. That's awesome. That is awesome. I will say, Sea of Thieves cosmetics, man. There's something special about them. The entire art design is awesome.
Oh yeah, very very fun to see like all the props that people make and stuff. And I've got a whole case full of them at this point. It's fantastic. It's the Lancer for gears that everyone loves to see on the wall, or like the Needler gun that you have like Sam has on his shelf.
Back that way, right there.
It's so cool. Yeah. Love that stuff.
That is cool, man. I love it. I'm going to shout out this week. I can't name them by name, but I have several students this week that have been going through it and working hard in school and dealing with problems in life. And they have been so good to me over the last few weeks and months. And like around this time, holiday gifts or cards come into teachers, and genuinely like 10, 15 years ago, we used to get tons of gifts, and it's really kind of gone away with kind of this current generation of parents. Teacher gifts just aren't a thing, but the cards are. And I had a kid who brought me in a gift yesterday. Included in it was an Xbox gift card, which is awesome because it means they know my interests and such. But next to it were a bunch of just very kind words from them, some cookies for me because they know what I like. But I had just one's not right the word, called them out to step up and work harder. And they took that in such a positive way and started working harder and didn't take it as critique, and they knew it was in best interest. And I just really appreciate that attitude, and I wish more people, adults, had that attitude. And so it was cool to see that. And so I wanted to shout them out. It was just a feel good, just a feel good for me. So yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, Well, guys, I'm so excited to talk about everything from our Xbox years in review to, I'm sure we're going to have to do it, Logan. We're going to have to talk about Banjo-Kazooie at some point. But I think first we need to give a shout out to our amazing patrons that have helped make this show possible. They keep the lights on and the content coming, especially during the holiday season when times are tight. We appreciate all of you. Logan, I believe it's my week to read names. Is that correct? Yep. All right. Well, everybody that's gone to patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass, we appreciate you greatly for letting us keep this show running. Our tier 2 and 3 shout outs this week are extended to Nicholas Johnson, Ellery Woods Parker III, Nicholas Downey, Rob Frawley II, Tao Zochi, Xbox Skittle, Steel Rain, Matto 1606, Randall Thor 19, Silkenet, Rick Gaffney, African aka Charles Jones, Game Positive, today's guest Jampack Sam, Matt Valdez, Neo Prime 33, Rick Davis, Red Beast, Xbox Mike 29, the Lord, Sir, Master, Fixer, and Completionist James Suddy, Brendan Myers aka the Winter Gamer, Sony's VP of Marketing Kevin Butler, Clint Coombs, DJ Hero, and Dano12. Thank you guys for supporting XEP over on patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. We appreciate you. I said appreciate like Captain Picard says it. Appreciate. I think it's dope.
I can appreciate that. It's good.
Yeah. That's right. He also says simultaneous. He says it as simultaneous, and I've adopted that in my real life. It's like when Logan says footage instead of footage. It's like, I like that. I'm here.
Footage.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I there are certain words that I have trouble with. I don't know, like rune and ruins. Like I can't say RUNE is tough for my brain to parse. So I conflate it with like ruins instead of just runes.
But I love that. It's the plight of the podcaster because it's part of your personality,
And then if you also have time to if you add it afterwards, you can just pick a different way to say something and totally avoid the word altogether, which is typically what I do. Like rural, never saying that in a video. You'll never hear that one. Not happening.
I find that and the word horror really hard to say. Horror.
Well, some people say horror, and I'm like, what?
Horror?
Yeah,
I don't know about
Northeast, they say horror.
Horror.
Because they don't want to sound like a derogatory term in their horror movie,
No, there you go.
I love playing me a good horror game.
Yeah, goodness, man.
Yeah, typically I just own the horror thing, and then everybody's like, "What kind of game you playing? Is that it's a very adult game you playing over there, Sam? I don't know about that."
I know for a fact Sam does not play visual novels, so he's safe from that.
True.
It's true.
Yeah. We'll see what the winter season has in store.
That's right. It might get cold and lonely.
I really do want to see like you playing Doki Doki Literature Club because it's on topic, it's on brand for what we were just talking about, and I think that it's one of those games that would surprise you. I
you can ask Kevin. I've been more open to more games this year than any other game or any other year previously. So 2024, if the trend continues, it could be the year of Doki Doki for me. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
If you're interested in it, let me know because I'm willing to gift that to you so that it's a free out of pocket cost. You can play it or not, but at least you have like the option if you get interested. Because it is. Are you familiar with Inscription?
Yes. Yeah.
Think Inscription, but in terms of a visual novel, it subverts your expectations of what a visual novel should be.
Okay. All right. I mean, anytime you say Inscription, you have a little bit of interest for me. So you're already like 25% of the way there. I'll do my homework and then we'll connect on that. Maybe that could be an experiment. We'll see where it goes.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. It was a very interesting game.
But I appreciate the offer there. That's very nice of you.
Yeah. Luke, what are we doing this episode?
Well, lots of
Banjo
things.
sucks.
Banjo does suck, but that's a topic for 20 minutes from now.
And that's Kevin's fight to fight, by the way. That's totally on Kev. I'm gonna let him.
Oh.
I'm gonna let him handle that one.
How dare you?
The context. The context for this is that we absolutely bullied Kevin on Project XTalk's chat the other day, which I'm very much looking forward to rekindling. But in the meantime, guys, one of my favorite things about this time of year is when companies allow you to revisit your experiences from the year in their platform. At various points, I've seen PlayStation and Nintendo do this as well. Xbox has done it in years past, but the ability to have a year in review for your gaming experiences. And right now, any listener can go to Xbox's website. It's featured prominently there on the front page to click your year in review, and you get to see a wonderful recap of your gaming experiences from 2023, from the games you've played to hours you've spent in them, achievements and gamer score. They rank you as where you are in the player base, whether you were in the top X% of the player base. And it's been a really enjoyable path for me. And I don't know about you guys, but I often open the Xbox app on my phone and just scroll hit the achievement tab and just scroll, because it keeps everything in order of what you've played, to basically just recall memories. Achievements for me, it's not so much about the number, but it's remembering my experiences with the game. That's how my brain works. But I love this year in review feature, and I found out some really cool stuff about my gaming habits that caught me off guard in several ways. And I'm curious, I'll start with you, Sam. Have you done the year in review?
I did, yeah. Kevin and I talked about it a little bit on this week's show, but I was also kind of shocked, and I also added the caveat at the beginning of this is also an account that's shared between me and my fiance, so there's a little bit of her stuff baked in there, which is mainly a significant amount of Elden Ring we found to be. But yeah, I mean, I found it very interesting. So I don't know if you want to dive into breaking it down, but yeah, very cool to see all of my time spent broken down into data, because we know Microsoft has it. So they're using it in a really cool way.
Yeah, we see this data used in a lot of ways, from advertising to which games are suggested, that kind of stuff. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your breakdown. I'm curious about this because I have a feeling it's Halo heavy.
Yeah, it is very Halo heavy.
Quick spoiler, I have heard it, but I want to hear it for the show.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So overall, if we want to break down like the 2023 highlights, I've had 985 hours of time spent in games this year. Once again, shared between me and my fiance, who plays way less than I do. She's in grad school. She's got important things going on, unlike me, where I'm just loitering on the couch. But that's broken down into 115 games, 15,000 gamer score, 712 achievements, and also 12,528 rewards points. So shout out to Microsoft Rewards for that. But number one was Halo Infinite with 123 hours so far. Number two was Elden Ring, where she put in 86 hours, which is a very respectable amount of time. She's in the top 20% for Elden Ring. And then number three was Diablo 4, which we put 75 hours into. So pretty proud of that. That's a high level breakdown.
Interesting. Did it give you a percentage of how active you were in Diablo? Because that was one of mine, so I'm curious. Did it give you a percentage?
Yes, I am in the top 35% of most active players on Diablo. And I told Kevin that this is probably like, I came back for seasons 1 and 2. I didn't spend a ton of time there, but the fact that I came back probably put me above the general user that fell off after launch, I would imagine.
Gotcha. That was one of mine. I was in the top 15%, and yeah, I'll share that from mine, but I found it surprising. So, Kevin, how about you, man? Where did you rank, and were you like Sam and I, where you like seeing the data was really fun for you?
Yeah, well, yeah. So I do data for a living, actually. Like that is my job. So I love numbers and I love all these recaps. I do them for basically everything I can. My Xbox one, pretty interesting for me. Now, Xbox is my main platform. And you really see that when you compare this to like my Nintendo and PlayStation breakdown, which is like woeful, especially Nintendo, where it's like your top game this year was like 18 hours played. I'm like, oh boy. All right. Like I don't spend a lot of time over there. But my Xbox One, total time, 554 hours, 57 games. I added 12,482 gamer score this year. I got 655 achievements. I added 51,731 rewards points, which killing it with the rewards. I just started rewards this year. So my morning routine is often like popping open the Xbox app, doing the Jewel, going to Bing, doing all those. But if we're looking at my most played games, and I'm often known like, oh, I play like the JRPGs and like these really heavy games. My most played game is EA Sports FC 24 with 64 hours.
But that's not all. The second game, tell them.
It is EA Sports FIFA 23.
What are we doing?
with 59 hours. And then number 3 is Diablo 4 with 51 hours.
Oh man, that's funny.
So I spend a lot of time in FIFA is basically what this tells me.
Yeah, but he had a good call out on his show where it's like Halo is I'm not gonna think and I'm just gonna shoot stuff, and then FIFA is his I'm not gonna think, I'm just gonna play some football. Like that's kind of the way that we approach the top played games, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just didn't know my number 2 was also gonna be FIFA.
Nothing wrong with that, man. But it is funny. It is funny. And Logan and I have this conversation a lot. The turn your brain off games. I've been in those a lot the past few months, just with everything in my personal life, just so stressful. I have not wanted to think. And so I've missed some of the more cerebral games like Alan Wake 2. I intend to get back to over the holiday and stuff, but not wanting to use that cerebral energy, the mental energies. I go back to my default comfort games, which for you is very much, football, soccer. So I totally get that. For Sam, it's Halo. And Logan, is Sea of Thieves a default game for you where you turn your brain off now, or is that still content for you?
No. Well, with Safer Seas, yes, because it's just me on the server. But typically, no. Typically, like Sea of Thieves, I'm actively like mentally. That's why I've kind of fallen away from playing that as much as I normally do, because there are other games that I genuinely just like. I'll go into Diablo 4, or for me it's always like Heroes of the Storm or like World of Warcraft. Like those are the 2 games that I can religiously sit down and be engaged with, but it doesn't require any learning or focus. Like I'm just playing the game for the sake of playing the game.
That makes sense. I'm curious though, for you, Logan, your breakdown was probably very different. Probably very different. What was your breakdown?
So I had a total time of 1,534 hours.
Okay,
I think that might be the most I've seen.
And
what was it? 1,000 what?
1,534 hours.
Oh, you beat me barely. Okay.
I did 73 games this year, which is nuts.
Nice
for me. I only got 401 achievements though, which when I compare to like to Kev, I'm just like, oh my God. Like my gamer score was like 6,581, which again pales compared to Kev. But my rewards points, I got 57,374, which is it's like a free game at that point, in my opinion. And then I was kind of surprised. My number 1 game, and this is the one that I probably talk about the least, but I actually play a lot of. Destiny 2 was my number 1 game. And I only got into the top percentage with 414 hours. That's top 10% with 414.
I feel like the people that are still engaged with Destiny 2 are the people that are like the diehards that are really there, ride or die, rain or shine. They're going to be playing Destiny. That seems, because I mean, it was kind of a down year overall from what I gathered. But are you somebody who comes back for every expansion, Logan?
Yeah.
Are you like there?
Oh, yeah. The time? Yeah, like I think this last season was the only season that I didn't complete. I'm typically the guy that gets like every single battle pass done for the season, and we got the new expansion this year. So I mean, I think within the first week of the expansion, I had already dumped 70 hours into it, and that was like not taking time off from work.
Yeah, wow, you're really putting in that work over there.
But yeah, so that was my number 1 most played. Number 2 most played was Sea of Thieves. I had 333 hours, which is probably an all-time low for me. But I was still in the top 5% of player base for that.
You had an interesting theory about this too, that you were telling me last night.
Yeah, because like I've the lowest I've seen that was in the top 5% for Sea of Thieves was just like it was like 150 hours, and they were still in the top 5%, which to me says that the vast majority of gamers that are playing Sea of Thieves are playing less than somewhere between 2 to 6 hours a week. Like it's very, very small percentage of people actually playing. Like, I would imagine most people probably put in like maybe 50 hours for the entire year, and it's a lot of them.
Well, Sam actually brought this up when we were talking about that little category. It's like, here's how you stack up against other players. And like basically everyone is like that I've seen post these on like social media is like, you're in the top 10 or the top 5%, which leads me, it's like, okay, people aren't putting in nearly as many hours. Like if I'm in the top 10% for hours played with my 500, which that leads me to believe like most players aren't really putting in that many hours.
Yeah.
I think that's a byproduct of cloud gaming and Game Pass. You have the option to try. If it's for you, cool. If not, peace out. No harm, no foul. It's like the Netflix effect. At least that would be my theory on that front. People are trying it. The first 10, 20 minutes of a game doesn't capture them. First few hours don't capture them. I got better options for my interests and they move on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Game Pass skews the numbers. If these were like purchases made and had to play kind of thing, like I think this would be a much different scale on the percentage wise. I think there might be a lot more people that actually play the game versus not, but I think the player base itself would be a lot smaller too.
Yeah. I mean, I think about Diablo 4, and as a game that is not on Game Pass, I'm in the top 35% because I did come back and I still play a little bit of the seasons, but I'm not up there with you, Luke. But thinking about a game like Halo Infinite, which is kind of the double hit of it's free to play for multiplayer and it's also on Game Pass, I'm automatically going to be in the top 5% just because I'm there every single week putting in, 8 to 10 hours probably. But yeah, I think the Game Pass and cloud gaming definitely has an effect. I mean, that's giving a lot of people the chance to dive in, but also how many, like you mentioned, are really coming back to put in that work and to get up to where, like Kev is in feet. I almost said soccer in EA Sports FC. My bad.
It's one of those dip your toe in, try it, and I think that's good and bad, but I think it's more good than bad.
Yeah. Well, I think Diablo 4 is probably like the best example that we can all kind of point to, because I was in the top 15% for mine. That was my top 3 game, and I had 191 hours in that one. So it's definitely like upper echelon. But I think with like Sam's comparison of how many hours he's got in versus his breakdown, this being like a game that you had to purchase, I think this is a lot better skew of like what are the gameplay, like who's playing how much. Sam, I think you had like in the 30s or 40s as far as hours played for Diablo 3.
Diablo 4, I had 75 hours.
75, and that was top 35%.
Yeah, that was top 35%.
So I would imagine most people probably put about 30 to 40 hours in, and probably did it at launch, and then finished it, and then that was it.
Yeah,
it's fun. Hearing you guys say the hours played, finishing it, be done. I've heard a lot about Starfield's numbers dropping in the last few weeks. Like, it's a single player game, not a live service, which I think is also interesting. And like the player base is going down. I'm like, well, yeah, I've played Resident Evil 4, Dead Space, Dead Island 2, Spider-Man 2, and a number of other single player games, and my hours in those dropped off steeply after I finished them. And I thought that was
I think context needs to be added when people try to say stuff like that, because I know Hi-Fi Rush, Brad, like they talk about like, oh, we've had 4 million players, or I don't remember if that's the number, but we've had 4 million players since launch. But then you look and it's like most people don't even make it to like the second like story chapter achievement or something, like achievements. And I want to do the same for Starfield. Like we've had 15 million plus players or whatever they're at. Like how many, if you look at the achievements, like what's the percentage of people actually beating the campaign? Or like, I know we looked at Phil Spencer's for fun on our post show, and he played Starfield for like crazy, I mean, like hundreds of hours, and had like 12 achievements. I'm like, Phil, what are you doing in the game, bro? Like what are you doing?
Yep. It's time played in some games doesn't always equate to achievement or gamer score.
Yeah, Phil Spencer has 13 achievements in Starfield according to his year
He
in
got
review.
one. He got another one.
Well, this is the one we read off of, so I don't think it's
okay.
changed since our
Okay.
podcast. But 13 achievements and 148 hours played in Starfield, which, number one, dude's putting in the work, even though he's over there fighting with the FTC. But number two, yeah, I mean, Bethesda games typically have very strange achievements where you can play an entire game and get like a handful, right? I mean, I feel like that's not an uncommon thing.
Well, I got 36 achievements in 40 hours of Starfield.
Sounds like you should be CEO of Xbox,
I
the head of
know.
Xbox over there. I
Just
think
saying.
that sounds.
Hey, you know, I still stand on my soapbox, and I say I want to see Jim Ryan's wrap up where he's at.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. That would be a very fun comparison.
See, he would have had different numbers, and he would share it, Logan, but he really likes live service. And he wasn't going to play Last of Us unless it was live service and multiplayer.
I love live service. Bring it.
Yeah. That's why he said they had to make Last of Us factions. Awkward. Anywho, can I tell you guys about my top stuff, my numbers?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me if I'm a fake gamer or not. Okay. Very important. My lifetime gamer score is at 241,000. Just shy of 242,000. So, like humble brag. My total time, not quite as strong as Logan's, with 1,462 hours played.
Fake gamer.
Yeah, fake gamer. Total games, I played 103 games this year.
Whew.
103. And I you know me, I love finding the fun and checking out smaller titles. That's one of my favorite things to do. 801 achievements throughout the year. With 21,784 gamer score acquired. I will say I am not one of the people that finds the 1,000 gamer score games on purpose. That's not my thing. They
happen to find their way on his dashboard, though.
On occasion it'll happen, but that's not a thing I seek out. I don't seek that out. I do get locked in on a game, as we've talked about before. I will focus in until I get a certain thing that I'm going for in it. My total reward points were 54,447. Not surprisingly, as a teacher, my number one gameplay month was June, which I thought was funny.
It's pretty good. Yeah, freedom, and then you just go off the deep end and just spend hundreds of hours in these games. Yeah,
that's exactly how that happened. But what surprised me most, guys, was Diablo 4 was my number one game played, which I had never liked Diablo prior to this year. It was not a thing I got into. I did Diablo 3 and I was like, whatever. Never had an interest, but Diablo 4 speaks to me. 248 hours played in this one, which has got to go. It's gone up since I ran these numbers because I continue to play. I really like season 2, and I don't enjoy thinking about the numbers and the stats, and I just like going around killing stuff. But when I have people like Logan and my other friend Kev, they'll jump in and tell me to go fix something versus ask me stuff. And then I can go and fix that, which is fun. But
sometimes you do it when I tell you. You don't do it when Kev tells you.
That's because he's really kind of a dick about it. And you're way nicer. Hey, why don't you check up your Paragon board? Let's talk about how to do that. I'll stream real quick. Let's fix your packs. Thank you. That's very helpful. One of the things I thought was interesting, my second most played game was Call of Duty, and I feel like that is a skew number. Because whereas Fortnite is one thing with seasons, Call of Duty is Modern Warfare 2 and 3 combined. And I did go on a Call of Duty kick this year. I get locked in, like I've said, and I did all the campaigns for 2 and 3, did them on Legendary or Veteran or whatever the high one is. They got a ton of every single player achievement I think you could get at the time. Really got locked in, but I had 192 hours in Call of Duty across single and multiplayer, which was cool. And I maintain that I had fun with Modern Warfare 3's campaign.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Everybody, like you always say, you got to find the fun. I have not played it. I'll wait for the Game Pass drop when it inevitably comes sometime next year. But I mean, there's still tons of fun to be had in Call of Duty. People give it a hard time because it's got so much of a legacy to live up to. But that's not to say that you can't have 192 really good hours spent in that for 2023. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I also Logan told a cool anecdote while we were playing the other night. I forget what game we were playing. Maybe it was Firefight, but he was telling us how like his friend is a very casual gamer. Is that right, Kev or Logan? Do you want to tell us about that again?
Oh, about my coworker, one of
Yeah,
my
yeah,
former supervisors. Yeah, I was talking to one of my former supervisors yesterday because he had hit me up for some work stuff, and the conversation ended with us talking about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. And I was like, "Hey, you still playing COD?" He's like, "Oh yeah, man. Oh man, I'm getting into Modern Warfare 3. Have you gotten into it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I dabbled a little bit." He's like, "Oh man, I've been having so much fun with that game." I'm like, "Oh really?" He's like, "Yeah. Me and the guys every weekend we jump on, we do some Warzone and we do some multiplayer." And I'm like, "Have you done any of the zombie stuff?" He's like, "Oh man, I can't do the zombie stuff. I don't know what it is. I tell my son to jump in and do that so he can get me the skins and the characters and stuff, and I just can't do it." I'm like, "Oh man, that's a shame because I really get a kick out of that mode, man. It's just goofy fun." He's like, "Yeah. He is the guy that we all talk about that we're looking out for when we're trying to like make sure that companies are doing right by the casual gamer, because he is the one that will buy like a PS5 and then Call of Duty and then Madden, and that's it. And has no clue what's going on with games, but he only buys the 2 games every year and he plays those games every year, and that's like his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weekend game and it's just like a jump on to have some fun and play around. But he's so passionate about it. Like their crew has like set roles and stuff in Warzone, like who's going to do what and whatnot. And that's it. It's refreshing to hear the conversation about video games from people who genuinely have it as a hobby, as opposed to a part-time job like we typically do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's kind of my bigger point too, is that it gets lost in the podcasting sauce just how niche our interests are versus the masses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any kind of commentary that we always bring up, like the people that are on this call right now for the Discord or for the podcast, and then that are in the Discords and that are in the Twitter Spaces that are talking about the news that's going on. That is we're talking about the recaps here. That's the top 5% of the players that are in gaming as a whole. And then the other 95% are just random people that are out there playing games and having a good time. So that's a good contextualizer, if that's a word, of just how important and how significant these conversations that we have really are in the grand scheme of gaming. I think that's a really important perspective to keep throughout the year.
Fully agree. And I talk to my students all the time. They almost have no idea that Xbox now owns Call of Duty. They're just like, "You playing Warzone? You playing this? You playing that?" And it's like, why be upset about them not knowing that? Who cares? They're playing it, you know?
Yeah, it's very true. I also had a similar kind of situation where it's the end of the year, corporate world is winding down. Everybody's kind of like, letting their hair down a little bit on these calls. And so we started talking about games on one that I'm on. And a dude is playing through the entirety of the Master Chief Collection with his son and kind of like bringing him up to speed on the world of Halo. And it was just really cool because I have my camera on and I have the Halo 3 collector's edition behind me. And he was like, "Oh, you play Halo?" And I'm like, "Well, I dabble, let's not get into it that much." But yeah, he started talking. So it's just cool to see, not only for those casual players, but also the crossovers that you don't realize that this dude that you work with or this person you work with is into gaming in a way that you might not think they are. It's really fun to uncover those little hidden people in your life. It's really neat.
Fully agree. And it's too often people forget, and I know it's the theme of our show, to just find the fun. Just enjoy your gaming, just enjoy it. That's the point. He's playing through Master Chief Collection with his son. Doesn't matter what year that came out, which one he's playing, which difficulty he's on, what achievements he's got. He's playing with his son and having fun.
Yep,
that's
100%.
Cool. Did you guys see that they're wrapping up development on Halo Master Chief Collection?
I saw that.
Surprising.
Yeah, I saw that, and I think I linked a Game Rant article in here because I couldn't find it. It's in our smaller topics. Anyone wants to scroll down. I couldn't find it widely publicized. At least maybe that was just in my quick little search. But it seems the news of this is making the potential rounds of Master Chief Collection might be done because they sent thank you cards to those who worked on them, and it had a start date for Master Chief Collection and an end date, which was last summer when they had its last big update, like not a maintenance update. I'm curious if this is true. Where do you guys say, are you pleased overall with Master Chief Collection being done? Does it sadden you in any way? No. Okay, Logan, you strong feelings. Go for it.
Yeah, Halo Master Chief Collection needs to have like I think 4 and 5 included with it. I think if you're going to have the Master Chief or 5, sorry, 5 should be in it because in 5's not available on PC either, which is weird. So I think there was still work to be done on it. I think that they very easily could have included 5 into the collection. I think they could have made a PC port for it because it's the Master Chief Collection. Like I get that Halo Infinite is kind of its own separate thing, but there's a lot of people who go into 4 and come out of 4 and then know that there's a 5, but have no clue like what the story is because they may only have the Master Chief Collection, but it's not the full collection. I don't know.
I think that's a really good point of not having 5 in there has always been something that's kind of been in the back of my mind personally, like as a big Halo fan of this story is not a high point of the entire series, but you can't look at the history and just selectively pick which games you want to put in this Master Chief collection. Like it's still, like Logan said, the story that's being told of Master Chief, and then it plays directly into Infinite, which will continue the line of where Halo's going. So for it to not be in there is definitely kind of strange. Overall, if this is the end, then they've done a pretty good job of getting it to the point that it's at today. Not to say that it is okay that they don't have the game in there, but considering where it launched and the disaster that was back on the Xbox One to where we are today, where it's continuing to put out new content for, to some degree, of having events and things you can go earn and whatnot, revamping the way that you redeem your in-game time spent with whatever kind of points system they have now, where they've kind of changed that recently. They've really done a good job of making it feel more like a live service game, even though it's not a live service game, to really kind of bake it into the expectations the players have after playing Infinite, after playing Call of Duty, that kind of thing. They've made it feel more modern than it really has any need to be, which I think is a good win for making it more appealing to people like my my coworker and his son that might want to check out multiplayer after the campaign wraps up, something like that.
Yeah, so listen, first of all, I love Halo, but nowhere near the level that like Sam or probably Luke over there loves Halo. Like I play the campaigns, I'll play a good amount of the multiplayer, and then I probably dip out. And like I haven't gone back to Infinite in ages. So you're over here like they're ending development. I didn't know they were still working on Master Chief Collection, to be honest with you guys. Like you could have told me they stopped updating this game when Infinite came out. I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense because everybody's gonna go play Infinite. If you're adding 5, I think it needs a PC port. Like that would be the big thing. Like the big barrier for adding that to the Xbox version was they would alienate their PC player base with that game. So like I think you need to add that to the PC version. And at that point, why don't you just roll in Infinite and call it Halo? Like I have a big hub, all the Halo games in there, like transform it kind of similar to what Call of Duty is doing.
I don't disagree with that, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't mind a tab. I don't mind a jump off point, provided they handle it a bit better than Call of Duty in terms of download size and necessity, that kind of thing. I don't mind a tab to say, hey, check out Master Chief Collection in Infinite or vice versa. I will note that I do think it's frustrating if Xbox's message, they've backed away from this a bit, but in, I want to say 2021, 2020, their message was like, your old games here, everything from this legacy is here. All your Gears games are back and pat. All of your such and such back and pat. You can find the legacy here. I have a feeling that with the arrival of Call of Duty into Xbox's pantheon of ownership, they have the ability to do that for Call of Duty, and they're going to go back to that a bit, like play all the Call of Duties here, all the Spyros here, the Crashes here, and they can do the same thing. It will be odd, I think, and I do think it's an omission that not many people, rather, I should say, know about with Halo 5 not being there, because for anyone that's not played it, the campaign's pretty cool. Like the gameplay is dope. On a technical level, 5, I think, is very good, but it doesn't feel like Halo. It doesn't play like Halo, and the story is stupid. Like it doesn't. There are so many for a lore person. It doesn't match at all. but it's still a great game and a worthy of a checkout if you're ingesting Halo as a series. So I do think that does need to happen, is get 5 into Master Chief Collection. I do prefer Infinite being its own thing for a good while, particularly given the progression that it's had. But back to the core question of, am I upset or sad or whatnot? Master Chief Collection's, it's such a redemption arc in a generation of difficulty for Xbox. To see Master Chief Collection end in theory where it is now, I'm very pleased and happy, and what a gift to Xbox players that want to check out what Halo means to the franchise, to the ownership, to the brand. I'm really pleased with it, and I hope 5 finds a way to get into there in some way, shape, or form. But I love Halo. I love that people can go back to Halo, and I hope that people do take the time to check it out.
I think the other difficulty, not to hang on this topic too long, but if you want Halo to be something that is going to be competing, even though ironically it's now owned by Xbox, but if you want to be competing with Call of Duty or Battlefield and you want that trifecta to continue, to lump them all into one launch, or just to play devil's advocate, and somebody never having played Halo before boot up Combat Evolved, they're going to be like, oh, this plays like a game from 2001. I don't want to play this. And then they go back to Call of Duty. So Halo has a bit of an identity crisis where it's relying heavily on nostalgia. And I admit that as somebody who's like all in on nostalgia. And then they've got to look forward with Halo Infinite. It's established a good foundation for where it could go and be modern and be one of those FPS games that people play on the regular in 2024 and 2025. But you know, how do you blend what people want from the old in the hardcore community versus bringing in new players and making them want to actually play Halo Infinite versus these other big live service games that in many ways are doing it better? I mean, I'm just calling it how it is.
Yep. I tend to agree. Either way, awaiting confirmation on that. I do think it's important to take a moment and celebrate Halo right now as it stands, Halo Infinite specifically. With their mid-season update, they did bring in Firefight and Logan. You and I talked about this, I believe, and I know I heard it on XTalk also, but I want to personally shout out how great I think Halo Firefight is. And I love that they recently talked to the community about adding in more difficulties, more options, more versatility to it. But if anybody has not checked out, if you are not a multiplayer competitive person, the PvE mode of Firefight is such a joy, I think, to check out Halo. The maps are amazing. There are 9 of them that you can play on in this mode. They are all a who's who from Xbox's legacy. So all those games you would have seen in the Master Chief Collection's multiplayer, those maps are there. Some of my favorite maps are in there. And I really enjoy Firefight as a mode in general. It's just such a pleasure to jump on and have that relaxed gameplay experience, because Halo can be very sweaty in multiplayer and send people away. So I really want to point people to check out Firefight because it's special, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that it's also, when you're talking about Firefight being something to celebrate, Forge as a foundation for what Halo has been able to kind of accomplish since we've had some leadership changes and a redirection, I would say, of their efforts. You know, Forge, for both the developers at 343 and for the community to help support that development, has become such a win. I mean, looking at not only the community creations, but the rotation of maps that is continually coming into the game to keep everything feeling fresh, on top of things like Firefight that are bringing back that PvE to where it's not quite as sweaty, but it's still giving you that Halo action. Yeah, Halo Infinite has just come such a long way, even since February of this year when I went to HCS to see the comeback from then, which was going into season 3 and people were optimistic. Now it's just continually winning for the hardcore community, and that's great.
Agreed. Kevin, have you checked it out? I should ask.
No, I haven't played Halo Infinite in quite a while, actually.
Yeah.
So whenever they added co-op campaign, that's when I last played Halo Infinite.
Gotcha.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
This is also my official resignation from XTalk. I'm no longer a part of that show. Formerly, no, I'm just kidding. But we will.
Welcome to
definitely get back in
XCP, Sam.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There you go. Look at that. Just like Major Nelson, you left and you're back.
Yep.
So good stuff on Halo there, guys. I will say our community has had multiple game nights where we just jump in and play. And Kevin, I hope you join us for one of those, because Firefight's just a blast. So it's a good time there. So let's loop back, guys, because in the midst of Xbox's year in review, I feel like there have been a lot of pivotal moments in Xbox this year. I think we saw a number of first-party releases, more than I'd seen in a long time. Admittedly, not always the AAA level, but from, I would argue, AA to triple, and very niche titles to very, in theory, mainstream titles from Racing, Starfield, that kind of stuff. Xbox had a really good year in terms of first-party releases with the black eye that is Redfall, which thankfully got a few good updates there. And in terms of software, they delivered on multiple fronts, including the Activision acquisition. I think that's a lot of good stuff there for Xbox in terms of software this year. What was your take on that one? Logan, start with you, bud.
I mean, I thought they did a really good job, honestly. Like, as far as software goes this year, I can't think of the last time we had this many opportunities to really jump into different experiences. And I think this is a conversation we've had in the past about kind of the varied experiences that Xbox offers. It was something that I think we've talked about as far as like when they do like showcases and stuff. It was really surprising to see. I think Minecraft Legends, I think, was something that was really surprising to come out of nowhere. I think Minecraft is kind of one of those ones that we don't really talk about. I think that's another conversation we had to off air about how Minecraft isn't something we really talk about all that much. But it was really impressive to just have so many opportunities to jump into stuff. And I think I was really proud of the fact that we were very honest about Redfall, but we were still very engaged with it. And I think that seeing the kind of the resurgence with the 6.0 patch and the updates to AI and stuff that came as a result of the October update really did kind of address a lot of the major concerns that I think the gaming populace that is engaged with that game had with it. Still very curious to see like where they go with it, but this was a really great year for software for Xbox, and really a testament to them putting their money where their mouth is. We've constantly been dealing with the Xbox One generation of, like, where are the games and stuff. And I think that is finally gone. I think that stigma has finally left the narrative. I think there's other narratives that people are trying to draw from Xbox at this point. It's no longer like where are the games. Now it's like where the the Game Award games kind of conversation. And to get away from one narrative to another is not always the best thing, but you do see some merit in the fact that there's at least recognition in some cases that Xbox has experiences for everyone that not everyone's going to resonate with, but are really good experiences if that's the thing that you're into.
Sam, what about you when it comes to software? Xbox's year stood out as a positive or negative for you?
I think this was a positive, but I also think that 2023 is what I would consider to be like the beginning of a redemption arc, if that makes sense. Like it was the first not bad year in quite some time. And I use that term loosely. There have been wins that we can talk about in every year. But thinking about from a software level, like you guys both have mentioned, there were a continual stream of games of varying quality, with Redfall being the low point, and then arguably you could say a game like Forza Motorsport or Starfield being a high point. The acquisition was a big deal as well, but I also think about software from like a third party perspective, and I think about Baldur's Gate 3 finally having come to Xbox. The research and development that went into making that happen is going to have a ripple effect for the next few years of helping games run more smoothly, bringing potentially more games to the platform more easily. So that's going to be a win that I think is going to set them up for success in the long term. But also, looking back on cleaning up the loose ends of, like, I know it was last year, but Deathloop and then Ghostwire Tokyo earlier this year, those exclusivity periods ending on PlayStation and bringing those games over to Xbox players. Like Ghostwire Tokyo was one of my most enjoyed games of the year. I really enjoyed Ghostwire Tokyo, and had it obviously not been on Xbox, wouldn't have checked it out. But also, it's on Game Pass, and that helped making me check it out an even easier choice. So I think between cleaning up those exclusivity periods, bringing more games to the platform through third parties, and then obviously having that hit of Hi-Fi Rush, Redfall, Starfield, and Forza Motorsport. I mean, those are 4 good games, again, of varying quality, but Xbox is finally bringing stuff to the table, and now we look forward to what 2025 and 2024 have in store, and kind of see where they take it from here. So I think it was a good year.
There you go. Kev?
Yeah, I echo Logan and Sam with, I think Xbox had a good year. I think if Redfall hit, I would say it was a great year, but because Redfall kind of put a black eye on it, I will say it's still a good year, despite people trying to point to, well, Redfall was like this massive catastrophic failure. Well, I don't think it was exactly that bad. It's not a game I enjoy. I think it is a little overblown just how like bad Redfall is. But if you look at everything else, this year kind of sets the tone for what I think Xbox is going for going forward. And what I mean by that is you see their first party kind of start coming into their own with things like Hi-Fi Rush dropping, being very well received. Starfield, I know it's divisive, but overall, a great game, you know, in the eights. And then you have things like Forza Motorsport, consistency coming out, always a good game. But also Game Pass. I think it'd be disingenuous not to talk about Game Pass, where it's kind of leaning more towards the vision I've said it's going for a long time now, where when Xbox gets their first party in going and putting out games, Game Pass is going to become this indie AA type of machine. And I think we've seen that this year, where you're seeing them get games that are like Atomic Heart, Wo Long, like those are AA, but then you see games like Sea of Stars coming to the service, Liza P. So games that people are excited for, but don't have that AAA budget, because those are games, as we know, when we saw those leaked documents, like if you got every AAA into Game Pass, like they would have less drops, there wouldn't be as many, and that's not really the service they're trying to build there. So I think there's been a consistent stream of quality throughout the year from Xbox, from Game Pass, and this is what I want to see going forward for Xbox.
I'm glad you mentioned Game Pass, because I very much think of Xbox's ecosystem as, in terms of software, as being I guess symbiotic between the two. First party or exclusive games released, because we know Towerborn's second party, and they're going to have a few of those going Stalker exclusive to Xbox. So they have their exclusive category, and they have their Game Pass category. And of course there's overlap, but I think a lot about when you're an Xbox gamer, you have more options than I think in any other platform. And if those options don't appeal, rock on, do your thing, right? But as an Xbox gamer with Game Pass, you have your Lies of P, you have your Atomic Hearts, you have your different Game Pass specific day one launch experiences, and then you, in another category, have the just exclusive titles there, which in large part are both. So I like that, and I'll be very interested to see how Game Pass changes in terms of some of those second or those exclusive launch deals. Are you still going to get the Lies of P launches when Modern Warfare and Diablo and whatnot launch into Game Pass? Like, are you still going to see that? Or is the draw going to be, yeah, you can play Modern Warfare anywhere, but you can have it as part of your Game Pass subscription? I'm very curious to see kind of how that happens, but I feel like it was a very good year for Xbox software, for sure. When I compare it to their most common rival in PlayStation. PlayStation had one AAA experience here. One of my games of the year, Spider-Man 2, by far a game I absolutely love. I got the statue. I adore that game. But Xbox had a great year in terms of trying to shift the narrative of Xbox has no games, because that is no longer a criticism I think that can be levied at Xbox.
Yeah, I think their next challenge then becomes, and this is not a dig at any of the games that were put out this year, but it's now not Xbox has no games, it's Xbox has no great games.
Correct.
And so now they've got to fight that fight of like, all right, well, we've got games, but now we need that Spider-Man 2. And Blade could be that, I know we have some of that in the show notes. We'll probably talk about Blade, but like that could be that. Clockwork could be that. Anything could be that, but it's got to finally deliver on putting it up there with Sony on that level of quality.
So I would push back a little bit on that, Sam, because I think Xbox has great games. I think Hi-Fi Rush is a great game. I think they need a game that has mass mainstream appeal that also hits that 90 on OpenCritic or Metacritic that people love to tout and care so much about, even though I don't think scores ultimately reflect the fun or quality of a game that you can have. So I think you need one. And I think it was Cast Co-op this week that I listened to where you brought up, is HellBlade going to be that? And you guys had that discussion. I thought that was really interesting because HellBlade's my most anticipated game for next year. but I don't think even if it comes out and hits into the 9s and gets that critic appeal, I don't think the mainstream is going to see it that way. It's still going to be one of those like, we got 5 million players, which is awesome, but Spider-Man got 20 million or whatever. Yeah. There's some crazy number because everyone out there under the sun is like, I'm picking up Spider-Man. We need one of those.
Yeah. I agree with that too. Not to cut Logan off there, but I definitely agree that it's got to be something that hits that mass appeal. Like however God of War cracked that code of going from like a PS2 game that no one knows about to being like everybody knows God of War now because of PlayStation. They've got to figure out how to do that for Xbox. You're totally right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if you look at like Hogwarts Legacy still hitting top 3 in November's NPD reports, like it's clear IP sells and Xbox is aware of that. That's why they've got exclusivity deals for Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones may not be the hottest property, but it does have a lot of, cachet with its name. It's been around long enough. And I think with Blade is a perfect opportunity to capitalize on an IP that people are familiar with, that there's films of. There's legacy there, but it's still not something that's really been exploited with films to the point where people are tired of it. You look at like an X-Men movie and most people are like, okay, are we doing this story again? And I think Spider-Man is one of the ones that's kind of like breached that kind of formula with the Spider-Verse movies. And I think they've kind of found something there. But to look at Xbox, I think Kev's right. You need something that has a lot of mainstream appeal. That is that kind of AAA narrative story driven game that people will pick up and buy, even if they don't complete it. Because I promise you, like most of the people that pick up and buy those mainstream PlayStation games don't beat them. Like majority of people don't beat games these days, but most people get enough out of them that they're satisfied with the cost investment. And I think Xbox has to get to that level before people finally stop talking about what Xbox is missing.
And it's harder, I think, for Xbox to get there because of Game Pass, because they make it so easy to hop in and say, well, I didn't pay for it, I'm going to drop it. They don't have that cost investment that makes people really like, I'm going to play through the whole game and wow, this is an amazing experience. I'm going to go tell everyone about it. They're like, at 20 minutes in, I'm not really feeling this. I'm going to bounce out.
Do you think a lot of like people's opinions about what they talk about and what they share as far as games go is tied to the cost investment that they have with it?
I have interesting feelings about the cost investment. Like when I see people say, well, I'm not paying $70 for that game because it's 10 or 15 hours long. That I have a hard time coping with that conversation because for me, you are paying for quality. You're not paying for quantity. And there are people who view it the opposite where, well, if I'm paying $70, this game better last me a long, long time.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I see it both ways.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Luke.
No.
Go for it.
I was going to change subjects, so I'd like you to finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, and then on top of that, also going back to, driving conversation about that, I think that's also a challenge because even like Logan, you said, if people aren't putting the time in to finish these games and they only play for a couple of hours, Xbox does need games that drive general conversation. Like a new Spider-Man game, as soon as the next one gets announced, trending on Twitter immediately, no question about it. And so Xbox has to get stuff like that where it can drive that general conversation of like, oh, I've heard of that. I can't wait for that. And then they start talking about it online and then it just drives that hype machine. They've got to get that dialed in, even if it doesn't reflect in like people putting hundreds of hours into the game. They've got to get those copies sold and to get people excited for what they've got coming.
Yeah.
The point that kind of drove this conversation was Kevin noting my thoughts on HellBlade's mass appeal. And I'd like to invite you guys to attack my logic on this. And I think that HellBlade does have potential to do for Xbox what God of War 2018 did, where it became mainstream. And I think that's probably a large part why we don't have the game yet, is Xbox perhaps looked at the HellBlade formula and perhaps, and I'm theorizing, requested a bit more combat, a bit more action, because the action in HellBlade 1 is wonderful, but it's sparse. And I wonder if we don't have a God of War 2018 or a Cyberpunk effect where not many people were in on the brand of Cyberpunk outside of the people that listen to podcasts, right? And we kind of have already articulated that that's not a very big demographic compared to the market of video games. And I think HellBlade has the potential to suddenly have articles written in different mediums about their investigations into psychosis or to audio design or to graphical design, and suddenly make their way outside of just the gaming medium. And then given the way that this was introduced at the Game Awards in 2019, given their connections to bands like Heilung, they have the ability to jump to other mediums. And I wonder if we don't get an Edge Runners, not in style, but in spirit, like a show about Hellblade. We see all the rage about the Fallout show, the Last of Us show, the Edge Runners. We've seen it done right in almost every category, sans Halo, in the visual spectrum to bring a bigger audience to the brand. I think Hellblade, more than any other Xbox property that's in the immediate future, has the ability to do. So I think that's where my position on that one comes from. I see a world where actors are acting out what's happening in Hellblade.
Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. I want to see a Hellblade movie in the style of Bird Box with Sandra Bullock. I feel like that would be really neat to have that same kind of tone and vibe. But yeah, Kevin, I know you were going to jump on it. What's on your mind?
I think Luke has a good point there. I think it has potential. And while I think the trailer, especially the one at the Game Awards that we've seen so far of Hellblade 2, have made it look phenomenal, made it look like that, as Lord Cognito says, just one, that third-person narrative, story-rich game, and then we got a little more combat with the Game Awards trailer. I think right now we don't know if the jump is big enough from Hellblade 1 to that God of War 2018 type of jump is what I'm looking for. If the game comes out and it is, I'm not saying like it doesn't have to be like an open world like God of War, but it is that sort of jump from like the first one was good, a cult classic, but this one really elevates everything so much that it's hard to ignore. I can see them being like, well, let's work with a director. Let's get this as a TV show, as a movie of some sort. Because like I just saw Oppenheimer this week, phenomenal movie by the way. But like if you're telling me like I could see like a 3-hour long Hellblade movie and like the acting, directing, sound, audio, everything is well
in IMAX.
Yes, as is well done. I would be there opening night to see that movie.
Logan, any thoughts there?
I definitely agree that the potential's there. I think Hellblade is still a very niche IP. I don't think that, a lot of people, I'm willing to bet that there's a large majority of Xbox fans out there touting about how excited they are for this sequel, and they probably haven't even actually played or finished this first game. And I think it's a lot of it is just kind of grandstanding for the sake of trying to make your system of choice feel like it's a bigger deal than currently what we're comparing it to. Not to downplay like the efforts and work that go into making Hellblade. I definitely see like the work that they put into that game, and they definitely make it look amazing. But you still have a lot of people out there saying that this game isn't real. It doesn't look like it could possibly run on consoles. There's no way it looks that good. The combat is messy because you can tell they edited stuff. Like there's already naysayers out there trying to downplay like the importance of what this game is going to be. I think it's definitely got the opportunity to be one of those kind of God of War games. I don't know that the story is layman enough for broad appeal.
You know what this reminds me of, Logan, and I know Alan Wake 2 is kind of a comparison I think can be drawn between Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
Because Alan Wake 2 is, in my opinion, a masterpiece. Like I think that's one of probably my top 25 games of all time. Like I absolutely think that game is amazing. But from what I've heard, the game isn't selling very well, despite being heavily focused at the Game Awards with a musical number, winning like big awards, like best direction, best narrative. Like those are awards that matter in the industry. And I think critically, Alan Wake 2 is being well received. But if you look at commercial like sales, maybe it is too complex of a narrative. Like, do the modern mainstream audiences really care about that like crazy audio design, the complex narrative story, or do they want something a little more simple where it's a good story but it isn't rack your brain fan theory trying to figure out like what is actually happening?
Yeah, and I think you're right on that, because I think, for one, Alan Wake 2 and HellBlade, both sequels, it's going to call into question like whether or not people need to jump into the first one to understand the second one. Also, Alan Wake 2, shift in type of genre it's a much more horror-based game, which is going to really turn people off when they find out about that. You're looking at I'm losing my train of thought here, but
Consider
you're looking,
box sales also. It's not physical.
That's true. Yeah, there's no physical on shelves to be able to show to people. You look at something like Call of Duty, which has this year been more panned than past years because of the campaign, both in length and in design. I think you need to have something that is easily understood and digestible, that's linear, that it is easy enough to kind of walk forward. Call of Duty does that. They push you through to each mission. You've got people talking to you about what's going on every single step of the way, and all you have to do is walk through and shoot things. God of War, same thing. You walk around through that environment. People talk to you while you're walking, and you just kill things. And then eventually you get to the end of the game. Spider-Man less so, obviously a little more open world, but it's like that is a world where, you know, swinging around in New York is just fun in general. So if you happen upon stuff, it's kind of like GTA, like you're just going to mess around and go wherever you want because the world itself is interesting. Same thing with Cyberpunk. I think Cyberpunk does that really well. I think HellBlade is going to be one of those ones where it will need to be a zeitgeist-based game to really kind of escalate the draw of it to the mass populace. And I think unless it does something like that, where everyone is talking about how good it is, the way like Breath of the Wild did back in 2017, you're really going to struggle with using that as kind of that game that everyone is going to stand up and be like, okay, Xbox hit it. They nailed it. They did the thing that we want them to do. I think Blade has more potential because of the name cachet there, plus the desire to push you into that third person action adventure narrative game that emulates what a lot of mainstream people want, which is to experience something with as low of frustration as possible, or as less need to be like critical thinking about what's going on.
Blade, I do not want to become a main topic for this particular episode, but I do want to invite you guys to critique just one thought or kind of like one stream of consciousness on Blade. I have a couple fears when it comes to it. First, the awkward messaging that has come from Xbox about it, the exclusivity, why are we announcing it now? Let us cook. We're going to be doing this for a long time. But then we hear reports that it's been in development for at least 2 years. You know, there's a lot of debates. Plus, there's a weird vibe surrounding Arcane as a result of Redfall, even though it indeed is a different team. But then there's the idea that we are seeing superhero movies flop left and right with questionable quality in multiple platforms across DC, Marvel, and independent. I wonder if we're not reaching the true peak of superhero content for a bit, and we're going to subside and go away for a while. And if by the time this game is ready, it's not even relevant or even wanted. That is not speaking for myself. That's not me, right? Like I love superheroes. I want that. But I wonder how impactful Blade will be upon release compared to a Spider-Man. Not to mention Batman and Spider-Man are the two rotating top 2 heroes across the board. And there's a pretty distinct difference in terms of popularity between Blade and Spider-Man to the masses. And just as an asterisk to that, I love the Blade movies, all 3 of them. Blade 2 is my favorite. Don't care what anyone says.
Hell yeah.
It's so cool. I could quote you that movie word for word. And I'm very excited for this game for a lot of reasons. But I have those thoughts in the back of my mind when it comes to this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that going into Blade, it is healthier to expect it to be an Arcane Leon game that is themed around Blade than it is to expect it to be a new record-setting superhero IP
Well
game.
said.
I think that's how we should all go into it. Now, how many people will do that? Probably not many, but I don't think going into Blade and expecting it to be a one-to-one comparison of like PlayStation has the better superhero game because it's not Spider-Man is an unhealthy way to think. I think
Right.
going into it and thinking like, okay, sweet, the people that made Dishonored are making a sick Blade game. That is what you should go in hoping for versus trying to make it something that it is almost impossible to live up to. I think that that's an unfair expectation.
Well said there.
Yeah, so I'm like you, Luke. I don't have the superhero fatigue. I do think, certainly in the Marvel realm, especially lately, with mainly Disney Plus content, that not everything is hitting and they need to slow their roll, which reportedly they're doing. So we know a Blade movie is in the works.
Marshala Ali, I believe.
Yes. And
Okay.
I wonder if this game comes out around that movie, which I think if Marvel in the years to come has scaled back, like next year, I think Deadpool 3 is like the only project on the books in terms of movies. If they bring back their releases, let the fatigue subside, I wonder if a Blade movie being really good, like that's key number one, and then a Blade game also being really good, hitting around the same time frame, could propel this into a bigger hit for Xbox. But also part of me kind of feels like maybe they got Blade and not like a tier hero because they're like, Xbox isn't the premier console, like they're they're not PlayStation. We'll give them something smaller. If they knock that one out of the park, then we can talk about a bigger hero.
It's possible. It's possible. I don't know, those were just kind of lingering thoughts that I had after Blade's kind of announcement, but teaser, but no gameplay. Who's the developer? All that. It was just in the back of my mind. And please, any listeners, sound off in comments or let us know on socials if you think we're off base, if you think, you agree with one of us, not the others, because I'm very curious about the pulse of this game, no pun intended. Just, where does everybody feel about it?
I do think that, like, as far as IP goes for games, I think this is both the best and worst year for superhero content. Like, IPs have been serviced so well this year with Hogwarts Legacy, with Star Wars, with Spider-Man, but then you also on the other side have like the Gollum game and King Kong. So, I don't know that there is a bubble for that. I think that if anything, the content that we've seen in the game sphere for when it comes to licensed IP is genuinely been a vast majority of it has been really, really good, treated with a lot of respect. And I don't see that changing in the future, because I don't think that there's a point, like it's not the PS2 era anymore. I think licensors of those IPs are a lot more protective of their IP, and I think that there's definitely companies that are looking to work more directly with game studios because there tends to be a lot more investment in bringing on good actors to bring to life those roles. I mean, Simon Pegg was in Hogwarts Legacy of all things. Like, I never thought that day would come, but it's one of those things where if Blade comes out, I think that there's a good chance that Sam's right. It'll probably be an Arcane Leon based game. It may not be on level with, like a Spider-Man game, but also Spider-Man, the first one was really good, but it pales in comparison to Spider-Man 2, where they've had a few iterations of it now. They've kind of worked out the formula. So Blade 1 may be, good, but not like amazing. But that does open the door up for other characters. We might start seeing more Marvel characters or DC characters come to life. And I think games like Suicide Squad are going to be the real test of how do you do IP when it shifts so dramatically from what you're known for.
Suicide Squad.
I'm
Yeah.
super interested to see how well Suicide Squad's like. Is the IP alone enough to make that game
No.
like a commercial
No.
success?
I don't know if the IP alone is strong enough alone.
It doesn't matter how good that game is; it is not going to do well.
Yeah, I can't imagine it doing good. But I will say, yeah, as we kind of wind down this part of the conversation, DC wants it. Like, they're going all out and trying to figure out a way to make a comeback and really compete with Marvel, especially in the cinematic side of things, where James Gunn is revamping that entire direction.
Mhm.
And I'd be surprised if they weren't thinking about the future of DC games. I
Mhm.
think Suicide Squad is probably one that's kind of stuck in the doldrums of like old leadership versus
Yep.
new leadership. And
Yep.
so I think that one, I do not expect it to do well either. But then
Mhm.
looking beyond that, we've got cries of a Superman game out here. Like, can we actually make something from the assets that Suicide Squad already has,
Mhm.
and kind of make a win out of this? Some of the work that's already been done. So I do think that it'll be an interesting next couple of years. And I also would love to see if Blade is a success, which I do think that it will be if you're looking for that Arcane Leon game.
Mhm.
Do we see other IP and characters licensed out to other studios of like, hey, we think they would be a good fit for this? Go do it, and then we'll see what happens. Just experimental kind of stuff.
Agreed. Agreed, and well said, Sam. Guys, as we transition away from that, I've heard a lot about, NPD numbers and software. Software is doing great. Now that Xbox owns Activision, we're seeing some kind of cool, Xbox games are in the top whatever of sales, and that's been really neat. But interestingly, next to that, I've seen a lot of hardware sales being down, and I found that fascinating. And I wonder if, and I have to suspect a reaction. I see you. A reaction to that isn't the price reductions that we've now got in the Xbox Series X, and seeing the really good sales we had around Black Friday, where you could get Call of Duty and Diablo with a Series X for well under $400 or something like that. Now we've got official word that the Series X is down to $400, and we're seeing it at Target and other places for around $350, sometimes bundled, sometimes not, and that has subsequently seen the Series S, while unofficially, come down in price in some places. I'm really excited by that news because I want more people into the ecosystem. Logan, you seem to have pretty emotional reactions. For any audio listener, he was waving his hands around while I was trying to get to the Series X point.
It's so not what are people playing these on? Like, why are what is the software doing that people are just like? I mean, I'm an outlier. I've got two Xboxes in one room from two different generations. I have an Xbox and a PS5 in a out in the other room. I've got a Switch in this room and a Switch in the bedroom. Like, I'm trying here, folks. I'm trying real hard to get these hardware sales up. I'm tempted to go out to Costco today just to go see if I can find one of those $150 Series S's. I don't know what's going on with hardware sales. They're down across the board. I don't know if it's just a market, if it's just like people aren't buying consoles this year. But bro, of the year of 2023 that we've had so many amazing games for just about everyone, the fact that the hardware sales are down 20% across the board blows my mind. What is going on?
Yeah, it's definitely shocking to see hardware sales for Xbox down the way that they are. I also think about Xbox too, and putting yourself in the shoes of the high schooler that's out there. I mean, Luke, I'm sure that you run into the school age kind of situation a lot, but it's almost like if all of your friends have an iPhone and then you get an Android. If everybody else has a PlayStation 5, then whenever you're going to your parents for Christmas and they're like, "Hey, what do you want?" I want to play PS5 because if I don't, my friends are going to make fun of me. Like, I think that's still an active thing in that age range of the gaming community. And, we're beyond that, and we're on a podcast about Xbox. So obviously we're all in on the ecosystem. But I think the PlayStation, just by word of mouth and the reputation they've built, still has a lead, and that's holding back people from going in. I do think, however, these prices are insane. And even for people that already have a PlayStation 5, I mean, at $150 for a console and a headset bundled together, you almost cannot pass that up. It's almost at that impulse buy of like, I mean, sure, why not? If you're going to give it to me, I'll take it. Like, it is at that level where I do think this is going to have a big impact on numbers. I don't know if it's going to really move the needle. Like, you're going to be able to see a huge spike in the graph and this is going to change the tides, but more people are absolutely going to be picking them up at these prices. And $350 for an X is crazy. That's so good.
I think when you look at, Kev, I don't mean to cut you off. I'll have you jump in right after. When you see the efforts by Xbox to build relationships worldwide, specifically with Japanese style games, you see the Game Awards where so many of those games were anime-esque types, the bonds they're strengthening. They're trying to appeal to many of the games that have gained popularity on PlayStation to come in at this price, to know if any consumer is unaware, like to know that you can have Game Pass and have so much at your fingertips, and see the day one stuff coming from, all the Persona games, Sega Atlas, that kind of stuff. I'm really excited for people to take advantage of these deals and check them out. Some of those games I referenced, Kevin, are in your wheelhouse. Am I off base on thinking that as a PlayStation gamer, with the games that you might be accustomed to, you could find a new home at Xbox comfortably?
So it depends on what series you're looking for. There's no doubt that PlayStation is still the go-to for JRPGs and Japanese focused games. There are a lot of series that, while I think Xbox is doing a good job in getting a lot of the bigger ones, there are a lot of these smaller series that still do well. I think of the Trail series from Falcom, which I love. That's still only PlayStation, and they're expanding to Switch now, though that's their focus. So like when they're sitting down at their investors meetings, they're not even talking about like, should we bring games to Xbox? They have, I think, one game on Xbox from the Ease series, but that is still like for the smaller teams like Atelier Ryzo, which does well. Like they just need to continue their work to get that audience in. But I think making the prices this reasonable, especially for Series S, which we know does well in the Japanese market. Like I think Walmart was having them at like 130, even lower than Costco in some areas. So like it is one of those things where I'm looking at it, I was like, I don't need this, but like 130 for a console is absolutely stellar. And it's funny, like just an anecdote, like I know my girlfriend's sister she texted me and she was like, oh, I'm getting a PlayStation 5 because our PlayStation 3 just died. Like they're very casual. They have very party games. Like we'll play it when we have people over for like certain things. But an Xbox didn't even jump into their mind. Like the casual gaming market, when they think gaming, they still think PlayStation. So I think having these sorts of deals can allow them to say, like, if I'm in the market, an Xbox is a lot cheaper than a PlayStation right now, but especially with the new variant that they're putting out where we see a price increase almost.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think about, part of me wonders if they're trying to clear inventory because it's, rumors of the next iterations. We saw the leaks and that kind of stuff. Nonetheless, I hope that families are taking a chance and checking out a new brand Xbox for sure. If you're a listener of this show and you're just a gamer and you enjoy kind of consuming our content, one, we appreciate you, but absolutely should you be taking a moment and giving these deals a look, because there's a lot of gaming to be had, and less is the PlayStation only category, right? Particularly given the panache and whatever other cool word applies now that Xbox owns Activision, they have more sway in the industry. It'd be really interesting to see kind of what goes on there. Gents, I think we can go ahead and skip some of this stuff that is in our topic for leftovers and whatnot, but we did have some listener mail. We had some listener reviews that I want to touch on, and then I'll invite you to return to any topic that you're interested in. But Logan, we did have a listener question about the Skull and Bones beta. Skull and Bones is your area, and I am so overhearing about this one. But Anubis, amazing listener of the show, asked if you had any thoughts on the beta. Are you still tuned in to Skull and Bones?
I'll be doing my 6 hours this weekend at some point. There's a beta going on right now, starting yesterday and then going, I think, until I want to say it's going till the 18th. But that's coming out on February 16th. Skull and Bones has been one heck of a story. But recently they flew out a bunch of Sea of Thieves creators and other content creators to visit the studio in Singapore to talk with the developers who were working on it. to get an idea of what things are going to look like, how actual is the February 16 launch date. And things are positive. Every Sea of Thieves content creator that I know that has dumped thousands of hours into that game has had a positive and excited approach to Skull and Bones, especially for many that don't know the legacy of how this game was literally in development and expected to launch the same year as Sea of Thieves, which was 5 years ago at this point.
Whew.
If you're looking at Skull and Bones and wondering if this is actually going to be a good game, yes, this is going to be a good game. I don't know if it's going to be a great game, but they've definitely gone through, thought a lot about it. You can see the passion, you can see the love and the care that they put into it. Every subsequent beta that I have played that is technically under NDA has come out with a more and more positive experience. I've seen this game at its worst. I've seen this game now where it's in its best state ever. I do think that the limitation of 6 hours is interesting. I think they're trying to keep a lot of the story and stuff limited so that folks aren't getting too much progress that won't carry over. But overall, if you like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, this is just more of that with an expansion of story and RPG elements in that pirate fantasy. There is power progression, there's cosmetics, and you're going to run into those Ubisoft cosmetic pitfalls that every one of their games has. But nothing is going to force you to buy those. Nothing is going to force you to subscribe to their seasonal pass content that will potentially make its way to this game. If you're just looking for a good pirate-based game that is going to be kind of in some aspects Assassin's Creed Black Flag, you're going to enjoy this.
Nice. Any interest, Kev, Jampack, Sam? Anything there?
Not for me. This isn't my type of game. I'm often criticizing Ubisoft, so their games don't appeal to me. But from what the screenshots I've seen and from what I've heard, this is in a much better state than it would if it had actually released, one of the 6 times it was delayed.
Yeah. I have requested a code through the Ubisoft Creators Program, so I think that email is coming shortly. I actually did it this morning because I do want to jump in myself and give it a shot. But I have moderate interest. Like, I loved Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, loved the sailing in that game. I thought they really did well. And of course, that's kind of the start of the Skull and Bones journey of how it came to be in general. So it's going to be fun to see how they've kind of honed in on what that final experience is going to be. I'm just ready for this game to come out. Ubisoft has been on kind of a hot streak this year of releasing really good games. They're not game of the year contenders, but they're good. Like, I know, Luke, you talk about the Crew Motorfest. I also like the Crew Motorfest. Mirage is really fun, and I think that they have a lot of wins to celebrate. But Skull and Bones is kind of like Beyond Good and Evil 2, where it's like this black eye on this upcoming games list they've got. And it's kind of like, well, if it's good, awesome. If it's just out, then we'll move on and we'll figure out what the future of Ubisoft looks like, and just take it from there. But yeah, I would say out of 10, I have an interest of 6. We'll go with that.
Can I just add? This is not. I'm not trolling. I think the game should be delayed from February 16th. I think February 16th is a terrible release date for this game. It is going to be so overshadowed.
I agree with that.
I mean, they were willing to launch it the day after God of War last year.
There are choices being made.
They were comfortable with knowing that God of War. It was God of War, right? In November, it was like November 10th or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
like they were okay with it being like, hey, yeah, we could 100% like let this thing just like roll out right after a major game release. That's fine. I don't think they're worried so much about that. I think that they know that their audience is going to be a very niche audience, and as a result, the broad scope of Skull and Bones won't actually be. I mean, I saw ads now. Ads are rolling on Twitch heavily, and they've got like their promo shots and stuff with their version of Wellerman, which is hilarious because that was a shanty band that latched on to Sea of Thieves and now is being appropriated by Skull and Bones for their advertising. Which hopefully that band actually got paid well for it. But I I think that they don't care at this point. I think that they are confident that their product is going to hit with the community that it will, which is why they invited who they did, and that's enough for them. I think they're ready to be kind of good and sign off on this project and let it be done.
At the risk of sounding like an idiot, what's wrong with February 16th?
So from January 26th through probably March, there's like tons of high profile releases.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that there might not be crossover with this audience, but I'm just saying there's a lot of big releases coming out. So maybe it could be pushed a little.
Yeah. I mean, to their benefit, I'm looking at the Game Informer release calendar, which is always great. Just gameinformer.com/2024. They have 2023 and the rest of the years up there as well. But there's nothing that's like wild coming out in direct proximity of it. Like the other big releases for February I'm seeing are like Suicide Squad and on the PlayStation side, Helldivers 2. But nothing that's like, I mean, February 29th is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So thank God they're getting out of the way of that. But like I think it could survive. It could weather the storm if we're sticking with the sailing analogies here.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. But more importantly, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank comes out January 18th. So I know you guys. Does it
really?
It does. It does.
I didn't know that. I'm going to play that.
Yeah, coming soon.
I don't know what Turnip Boy is.
He committed tax evasion. The Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. It was a Game Pass game. It's like 3 hours long, pretty easy, 100%. This is the sequel. He's robbing a bank now.
Oh, okay. Sounds neat. Guys, a long-awaited update has arrived to a major Xbox game, and I feel like Logan and I consistently don't include this when we talk about Xbox IP, and that's Minecraft, Minecraft proper. There was a new Minecraft update arriving, and included in it is 4K support for Series S and X consoles. I am sure this matters to someone out there, but I can remember there was an Xbox event some years ago where the 4K update was a very big deal. Sure, cool. I will tell you, my students play Minecraft all the time. None of them associate it with Xbox whatsoever. But they are all playing Minecraft. So I think that's neat to say that it's finally happened. Next to some of the great updates we've seen to a lot of Xbox properties. We talk a lot on this show about how well Xbox manages a number of their service games, from State of Decay 2, Logan, which I consistently forget as a service game, but Grounded, Sea of Thieves, Halo Infinite. Just they do a great job at providing content to live service. To see that Minecraft is getting the 4K update, to me, is very cool.
I thought it was really surprising. I could have swore that the 4K was like available. I didn't realize like 4K was not available on Minecraft. I was like, wait, what? What do you mean 4K? This is like Minecraft. Like, why isn't this already a thing?
Yeah. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But like, I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong. Yeah. Okay. My understanding was that the PC version for years now has been the vastly superior version, and console players have been asking for the 4K update since the Series X came out, because it was apparently promised for ages, and we finally are getting it. I'm very happy that the community is finally getting this much requested update, and the visuals, I'm sure, will make those blocks look great.
I think the other question too is looking at, like, I was just Googling it to make sure that it hadn't launched yet, but I know that there's the Minecraft ray tracing Windows stuff out there that adds like really in-depth reflections and things. The 4K, this is like an exciting Xbox One X announcement, but I'm ready for the next, like, give me real next gen upgrades for Minecraft that are beyond just like, oh, sick, it's not upscaled anymore. So when ray tracing drops, you'll have my attention, and by have my attention, I mean I'll just clap for them and not go play it. But,
exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, but like, will you?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go back and play Minecraft. No. Absolutely not. No, and I have friends that play Minecraft, but that's not me. I'm not going to do that.
Nerds.
I just checked, and gamertweak.com has it listed that 4K was initially promised back in 2017.
Yeah.
That was the year Breath of the Wild was launched.
And the year of the 1X, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 2017 was the 1X release year, I believe. Yeah.
Neat.
That's wild to me. I'm glad that they're finally getting it. That is bonkers. That game deserves more support than what they give it, honestly, because it feels like Lego Fortnite is starting to like creep up on that territory, and I think a lot of people are having fun with that, and it makes me think like, aw, Minecraft is a lot, but I don't think they're really shouting from the rooftops. And when they're like, hey, we're adding the armadillo, it's like, okay, guys, let's think bigger. Let's get some. Come on.
You say that, but it's still like among younger audiences, it's still the go-to. Like my girlfriend's nephew, I went over and they were like, "Oh yeah, they just discovered Minecraft. They're playing it on the tablet." They're like, can you help?" I was like, "I have no idea how to play Minecraft."
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing is like, how many regular Minecraft players are booting it up today and noticing it, or whenever this update drops, and noticing anything different than the day that they were playing previously? Like, if there's a 4K update for a big AAA game like a Call of Duty or a Battlefield, not that they're already in 4K, but you get what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Like, if there's a bigger update for a game where fidelity is more important, then people are going to freak out about it. But I kind of get, not that I'm making excuses, but I get why this isn't like, all right, we need to get this out this year, because it's not going to make any difference for people's gameplay experience, and probably it's not going to drive any conversation beyond us talking about it here. But
look, they're going to have sharper corners on those blocks.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No more anti-aliasing, no more fuzzy edges. It's going to be crisp.
Yes, and I'm sure that Kevin's family will absolutely notice that on there while they're playing on a tablet. So I guess
they better.
Yeah,
heathens. I love your family.
Before we get to listener mail, I think we've had a community review written by Anubis316 about Robocop Rogue City that I want to read to you guys. He was kind enough to write this in over on Discord. I love when we get community reviews because it allows us to cover a game that isn't necessarily in our wheelhouse. Speaking of, Kevin, please come write some for some JRPGs. This review comes from Anubis316 about Robocop. He says, Robocop is an excellent game from a simpler time. I was not expecting to like the game this much. The Gamescom gameplay looked rough, and I'm not really a Robocop fan, but there was enough insider praise to give it a shot, and I really couldn't put it down. Before I go further, I'd like to say this game isn't pushing the industry forward in any way. Graphics are good, but not great. The mouths don't really line up with the words, and the whole game is kind of stiff. But surprisingly, that works for a Robocop game. These criticisms that I have actually worked and added to these criticisms have actually worked and add to the experience. My last disclaimer is that I'm a 35-year-old Halo fan, and linear, simpler first-person shooters are my favorite genre. Now, what makes for the game to be so good? The story is fun and pretty well written. It doesn't do anything surprising, but the concept of a dystopian city run by a corrupt government and private corporation is easy to grasp and enjoyable for most people. I thought the dialogue was really good. Even the random NPC dialogue that happens as you walk by is always worth listening to. The game is mostly linear, but a small handful of blocks in Detroit are free to walk around in. The weapon selection is mostly your iconic pistol with infinite ammo and a handful of others. I think it was 2 shotguns, 2 pistols, an assault rifle, a micro Uzi, sniper, RPG, and my favorite was the LMG. There is a skill tree that wasn't super important, but it was nice to have. Some upgrades are actually pretty nice, but playing on normal, I really don't need any of them. To wrap this up, I can't recommend this game enough. I would give it a 9 out of 10 because of the fun I had, but again, I want to point to it being a AA Robocop game, and that allowed it more forgiveness than if this was, say, a Halo game. That is Anubis's review. Thank you, Anubis. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. From the people
IP's doing good, man. IP content is doing real good right now. I think everyone's fine with it.
I liked the Terminator game these guys made, and I love that he found the fun, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that's the important element here is that, like, it's a new Robocop game in 2023, and it's not bad. Win all around. Like, that's neat to see. So I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that you enjoyed it. So thanks for that review.
And it had Peter Weller doing the actual voice. Like, how often do you get? I mean, you're not gonna get Homelander's voice in Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a boon for RoboCop.
It's true. When I played Terminator Resistance, there were some likenesses in the game to not Schwarzenegger, but the guy from Terminator 2. who played T1000. Like he was in
Patrick. I can't think of his name. It was Patrick something. No, I can't think of what it is.
We're gonna call him Jonathan.
Robert Hammond Patrick. I got you.
Patrick. That's where it was.
So
Okay.
quick Googling. Excellent work there.
Nice
Nonetheless, finding the fun has been our theme in 2023, and I love that this person found the fun in it. Anubis, you are awesome. I am going to play Robocop at some point because I did enjoy the Terminator so much, and like again, that's my jam. AA. I'm still struggling to get through Atlas Fallen because I'm playing all these seasonal events and games, which is fun. Gents, we had some listeners write in that I want to reference. The first one coming from Game Together Pod over on Twitter. They ask, what do you think about The Last of Us Online factions, along with the state of Sony's ecosystem? Do they feel the heat from Xbox, or is this just inevitable? Boys, while you form your thought, I want to reference that The Last of Us factions being canceled sucks for anybody that wanted to play it. I had no personal interest in it, but it does suck. I don't understand dunking on them for this. I think that fanboy-esque approach is silly. I do think it stinks that they promised this. There were some articles dug up. They did say multiplayer. They did say Last of Us Online was going to be part of the package if you purchase Last of Us 2. To me, I think that's very silly. It reminds me of when Logan talks about Redfall and the Bite Back edition, because you got the complete game, but then there's promised content. So like, Logan's consistently right when he says it. They have promised us two characters in Redfall. Same energy towards Last of Us. You have promised us online. You didn't deliver. Where does the upsetness go? But I don't feel bad about it. And as far as feeling heat from Xbox, yes, but no. Like, yes, that was their whole thing. That's why Jim Ryan in his tenure was trying to push games as a service. But also, no, come on. They're selling out nonstop. PlayStation's fine. That's my take. Jump in, anybody.
I mean, I'll jump in if you don't mind, Logan. I really have a problem with the need for every multiplayer game to be live service these days. And I tweeted as much, where remember 10 years ago where you bought a game and it came with a multiplayer mode and we didn't expect it to go on forever? Those are the days that I wish we could get back to. I know, Logan, you love your live service games, and I've dabbled it. Like, I played Crash Team Rumble this year. I got the 100% in Crash Team. But after I got the 100%, I'm okay with letting it go. Like, maybe I'll go back and jump in. But if there isn't a constant stream of content, like, that's okay for me. And I'm ready for people to call me a boomer and say like the industry has progressed and now things need to be live service. But if Naughty Dog had put out the Last of Us factions or online and it was just like, we're going to support it for 2 years, or like, this is the game, like all the content's in there. This is a multiplayer only game. Have fun with it. And then when it dies, it dies. I don't know why that's a bad thing. Why can't we just accept, like, I paid $70. I got a worthwhile experience out of that for the time it lasted, and then move on.
Sam, you want to jump in with your?
I didn't know. So
Logan's loading the shotgun.
Yeah, I feel like
for each of you.
I feel personally like, if you look at the explanation they gave, I think it's a really great, transparent moment of, hey, do you want Naughty Dog games, or do you want us to become the next Bungie where we're just churning out content continually for this thing that is unproven and may not be successful? And I think that that's a really grounded take. And I think that that's the direction that they chose to go is the right one to choose for Naughty Dog and for where they want to go as a studio, because that's where their creative passions lie. I think that's a really good and wise and mature choice for them to make. And it also shows that Sony has agreed to this. They have listened and said, all right, well, you're not wrong. Go for it. I do think that this entire situation with live service games and the focus that Sony has been putting has made them seem like they're finally not infallible. Like, they have for so long seemed like they can do no wrong. And now you're starting to see where the strategy they've been going for the past 5 years or so, or building up to for the past 5 years or so, might not be the direction that they need to go or want to go. And so now they're having to pay the price of like, all right, we're going from 12 to 6 or whatever their live service game total was. We're cutting factions. We're refinagling. So I think behind the scenes, there's nothing wrong at Sony in particular, but it does show that PlayStation's strategy is shifting around. And as for the Xbox putting the heat on, I think that it's impossible for anybody to exist in the gaming space without looking at what the other person's doing.
Mhm.
But PlayStation definitely kind of has a Nintendo vibe to it where they're focusing on their own ecosystem. And I don't think that what Xbox is doing is directly playing into their strategy in any kind of big, grand way.
See, that is the appropriate answer. Thank you, Sam.
I'm not getting
Luke,
shot, thank God.
Luke, your
Come at me.
comparison to the buyback edition versus an entire multiplayer mode is an unfair comparison, I think.
Okay.
I think that adding 2 characters to a game is way different than building out an entire multiplayer system.
Mm-hmm.
For people to, like, servers aside, they've already got that multiplayer system built in, so it's just like adding another operator in Call of Duty, in my opinion.
But
for the
Logan,
buyback edition.
to quote my good friend and co-host, sometimes I consider him a brother even, you were promised that when you purchased it.
Yeah, I'm still patiently waiting for it.
I was promised factions when I purchased Last of Us 2.
That's fair, but there's a much larger undertaking that was not like factions was included with the price of the original game. Buyback edition was an additional purchase.
Good point.
To Kevin's point, which now I feel like I'm losing, the being one and done with the multiplayer. We've seen that from PlayStation, and I would argue that it has died, and as a result, is not the reoccurring revenue that would actually have done well. And I'm speaking to Ghost of Tsushima's 1 month later launch of the multiplayer. They had an entire like asymmetrical multiplayer game that was a lot like Firefight in some ways that you could play through in Ghost of Tsushima, which is a fantastic game. It's still one of the most expensive games that you can buy on PlayStation because the value has retained so well for it. They haven't had to deep discount it too often. They've gone on to do a DLC update for that they sold to Iki Island, which did decently well, but they're pushing on to the next content. The problem with Ghost of Tsushima's multiplayer is that even though it came out for free with the price of the game when you bought it, they ended up selling it separately. The multiplayer, the matchmaking there probably is still very, very low. It's probably not many people jumping into that. So if you do that for factions, it's going to be good, but that is time spent developing on a system that you know has a half-life. And to Sam's point, if you're going to do that, you have to decide, are we going to do something that is going to actually warrant the cost of investment in making this system? And if we do, we have to go all in because you have expectations with that. There's content that has to be delivered, updates that have to be done, balanced performance that needs to be tweaked on a live, on hot fixes and stuff like that. You're going to be in it for the next couple of years. And if you're not wholeheartedly putting it into that, people are going to write it off real quick and it's going to die within the first year, like many other games as a service do.
But my point, my point was, why does it have to be a live service? Why does multiplayer in 2023, 2024 mean live service? Why have we gotten to the point where that's the expectation? Why can we no longer say we made a $70 multiplayer only experience, like all the content that you will ever need or that we're going to make is there at launch. Here you go, have fun, and however long that lasts, whether it's months, that is the product. You pay, just like a single player game. You paid the $70. You had your fun. Time to move on.
I think because you can't sell it at $70. And I'll point to Star Wars Squadrons as the example. It was a $40 game that was multiplayer only. They touted it as not being a games as a service. And who talks about playing that game?
That's fine though. But like, in my opinion, that's fine. Like, I'm okay with things dying and ending. I'm okay with us moving on.
I think if that's the perspective, then that's 100% fine. But I think that if you're going to make a multiplayer game, people get frustrated when servers get shut down on stuff. Like people are annoyed when they can't jump back into that. Look at the resurgence that we saw just this year with Call of Duty when they brought back the servers to be able to jump into that. People were playing more Call of Duty that was old Call of Duty games on old servers because those servers were online. If you build a game that is only going to have like a shelf life of 1 to 2 years for a multiplayer game, and then you turn off those servers, because that is a cost investment in somewhere, and that has to be maintained. Even Heroes of the Storm still gets patch updates from some random person that I don't even think Mike Ybarra knows who's doing it. But those servers are still running. StarCraft 2 servers are still running. Diablo 2 servers, Diablo 1 servers are still running. And things like that all still have cost investments involved. So if you're going to do that, then you have to try and like determine how much money are you going to set aside for a game that is not getting any more revenue. It does not have any kind of cosmetic influx coming as far as like what is going to support those server costs. And as a studio that predominantly does single player content like Naughty Dog, I don't blame them for sticking to their guns and saying like, this was a Jim Ryan decision to try and do games as a service. It's not going to pan out the way we like it because it's not the type of studio that we are. It's not the culture that we wanted to kind of cultivate here. We're going to stick with single player content because that's what we're good at. And that's exactly what people expect from us. And I think that should be a very well touted thing to do. Is it's like, it's okay that those are not going to be live service games and don't have multiplayer aspects to them.
I would also say that any multiplayer game that comes out today, like I totally agree with Kevin here that not every game needs to be this continually live service thing that I have to keep coming back to week after week. But we can't get out of the fact that any multiplayer game that comes out in 2023, if it's touted as a multiplayer game, is going to be held to that expectation from players of like, well, where's all the content? Like I finished the battle pad, like the base thing. What's next? Like there's this, we always have this carrot on the end of the stick trying to get us to keep coming back. And if that carrot isn't there for better or for worse, then we're going to be like, what the heck? This wasn't worth my time. But I wish it was different, but that's just kind of the way that things are now, I think.
That's fair. That's completely, I get. My problem isn't with the studio, it's with the expectation of players in 2023, 2024. Is that is what we expect from multiplayer games. The constant live service, constant updates, which I'm glad Naughty Dog is like, we're going to make single player games. Great. I'm happy with that.
I think that's fair. I don't disagree with those.
Good convo, guys. I enjoyed listening, even though I glazed over at part of it. I was like, oh gosh. I started to fade. We have our final question coming from Lucas Egan. Thank you to Lucas, by the way, because he found us via you, Mr. Kevin Ainsworth. So we appreciate you. Lucas asks, which Xbox franchise is most in need of reinvention? I thought about this question a good bit because I got to see it early. And I feel like we've seen Xbox do this a couple times in terms of like Minecraft with Dungeons and Legends, Gears with Tactics, Halo with Halo Wars, and Spartan Strike, Spartan Assault. We've even seen a good arcade game in terms of Fireteam Raven from Halo. So I feel like Halo's good at this. My gut check response was that Gears would be a great choice, and a lot of people are wanting Gears back, both in way of Marcus Phoenix Collection and Gears 6. But Gears is a universe ripe for survival horror, and I also think we've not seen enough of the Onyx Guard, which are the Spec Ops characters from Gears. I'd love to see a first-person shooter based on gadgets and stealth, going through and basically doing things in that world as like a rogue Onyx Guard or an Onyx Guard that's trying to survive, Emergence Day and save some of the not MVPs, some of the, super important people on Emergence Day to get the presidents out and stuff like that. I'd love to see that happen. I think that's a universe that could be explored more outside of its standard. But I invite you guys to jump in with any thoughts that you have for any Xbox IP. They got a big war chest.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking through a list right now just to refresh myself on it. It's hard to really pick one that I think deserves a reinvention, I guess. But looking at what they did with Battletoads, just as an example, like I know that wasn't developed by a first party, but like it was a first party IP to have a reimagining of what that looks like in 2023, I think is really neat. But beyond that, I mean, looking at the list, we have Banjo-Kazooie with the Battletoads kind of skew on it. Like that could be a thing that I think could be worthwhile for them to come back to. But they're already doing the one that I would probably pick of like Fable. Like it was so ready for the next evolution of what that series is, then I think that that's going to be one to keep your eye on. But that's my half answer, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Banjo doesn't need a reinvention. It was perfect. They nailed it the first time. They just need a new game.
So good that
About
they've made lots of games. Oh, that's weird. You know, no, they haven't made a Banjo game in a while because it wasn't worth it. Stupid game.
Banjo's a great game. It's better than Mario 64. Everyone constantly says Mario 64 revolutionized the 3D platforming genre. Banjo actually did it. So just want to throw that out there.
I'm gonna retort that and say that Banjo was stood on the shoulders of Mario 64 and Zelda to get where it is.
Mario's not even a good character. Mario kind of sucks, to be honest.
Mario is the everyman. Mario is the guy that is every profession. He's the most relatable.
Yeah, he's won the Olympics. Better. Has Banjo won the Olympics? Has Banjo outrun Sonic?
Here's what Banjo contributes to society.
Luigi's better than Mario.
That's true. I agree with that.
Yeah, thank you. Luigi's Mansion better than Mario games. I think Gears of War. I said this. Make Gears horror again. We need to get back to its roots. Make it scary.
What was that word? Horror
for some.
I love my horror games.
If you're from Boston, you say horror. What needs a reinvention? Gears comes to mind. Fable is also my pick for what I wanted to bring back. I want to see a new Cameo game. I know this might be the hottest of takes, but I really would like to see them give that IP another go because I don't think it was the worst idea. I just don't think they nailed it on the 360. But that 360 launch lineup also had things like Perfect Dark Zero, which not a very good game, and they're trying their hand with that one again. So why don't we give Cameo another shot? Oh, and Rise, Son of Rome 2.
Oh,
there you go. Okay.
I still need to play Rise. It's on the backlog.
Sorry, I hated Rise.
I love Rise.
I was gonna say I've heard this conversation recently of how much Luke hates Rise. So
listen, if they just get rid of the quick time events, the story's good. They just gotta improve the game, the combat.
Yeah. Well, back when Rise came out, they thought you'd use your Xbox just to watch TV anyway, so it wasn't really a focus for them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do use it for now.
I don't watch TV on my Xbox.
Me either.
What do you watch your TV on?
My TV.
The app, so that I Voodoo or Hulu or whatever.
Roku. Yeah, I got a Roku.
You don't go through your Xbox for this?
No, I hate that. It actively bothers me when I see people doing that. I don't know why. It's just a weird thing for me.
Same. It's faster to do the built-in TV one usually.
Okay, I think we're all speaking from a bit of privilege with our LGs, C1s, the OLEDs.
I have a TCL in the house somewhere.
Me too, downstairs. That's the living room TV.
Mine's the guest room TV.
My OLED.
The in-laws get to use the TCL.
My main TV is a TCL, so just gonna.
Whoa!
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not hating on you one bit, Sam. No, I'm not hating on you one bit.
I took that COVID stimulus money and immediately bought a 65-inch TCL, like I'm sure the government intended for me to do. So
that's what I bought my OLED with.
That's how I bought my OLED also. I was like, yep. Mm-hmm,
I mean, I'm at home 18 hours out of the day minimally, probably more than that in the peak COVID. I might as well have a big TV, if we're going to live through this.
There you go. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Enjoy it. Well, boys, wait, Sam, did you want to say Reinvention? You said Battletoads.
I did mine, but I do have an additional one that I'm just going to throw out there, and that would be a first-person Wasteland game. I feel like that is a big potential win, and you might say, I think that's Fallout. It could be, but it could also not be, so I'm going to throw that one out there for consideration.
There you go. Okay, I'm there for it. Well, guys, I feel like we have had a fantastic run. I want to make sure I didn't skip anything. I don't think I did. Is there any topic that we have not touched on that any of you would like to bring up before we start to close out here? I'm hearing crickets.
I don't think so. I would just recommend everyone, if you guys get a chance, go and try out some of the events that are going on right now. I know Luke and I have been diving a lot into like the winter events and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's always my favorite season is when they're doing something special with the games that you're familiar with. So go check out your favorite game, see if they've got like a winter update. I guarantee you they probably do.
Absolutely. Winter Contingency 3 next week. Halo Infinite, December 19th.
So excited.
Not an ad, not sponsored, but coming soon.
I'm excited for that, for sure. And the Firefight XP changes. Ready for that too.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
I want a new Mech Assault game or Steel Battalion to come back.
Yeah.
Titanfall 3.
Yes.
Also that.
Remember when Jeff Keighley said, the makers of Titanfall, and then nothing happened? That was real frustrating. Real frustrating.
If Steel Battalion comes back, can I also get that controller? The original Xbox Steel Battalion controller.
That's what I want, dude. I want to have like a time where I can sit down and actually afford to have a $200 console controller. Like,
Yes.
that isn't just like I've got a super duper cool scuff dealy bob kind of thing. It's like, no, I want like 200 buttons and three joysticks, one that I have to operate with my foot. Like on the ground. Like I want a full on kind of like system thing. I don't want to putty around with just like having to like remap my back buttons.
MetaQuest 4, it's all virtual.
Oh, I mean, that
We
would be
didn't
neat.
even get to that topic either. Xbox app now being available on MetaQuest 3.
Go
Dozens of
play
people
that.
are excited.
That's about it.
Yeah.
All right, gents. I'm going to let you guys do your plugs after mine. You guys can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost. And of course, you're listening to XEP, and I encourage you to like, share, subscribe, comment on whatever platform you indeed are listening on. I will also say a very hearty thank you to Kevin Ainsworth and Jampack Sam. We appreciate you both for joining us from Project XTalk over at Save Game Media. I want you guys to make sure you plug your shows accordingly. Logan, what do we got going on Keelhauled, and where can we find you on socials?
Right now, Keelhauled is doing the community episode this weekend, bringing in folks to talk about their experience in the latest season, as well as anything they want to talk about, Safer Seas. There's seasonal stuff going on in Sea of Thieves coming up next week, I think. So just keep an eye out for that. A lot of people just wanting to know what's going to happen with season 11. Otherwise, you can find me over on Twitter and Threads at CAPT_LOGUN or in the Discord for XEP.
There we go. There. Jampack Sam.
Yeah, you can find me everywhere at Jampack Sam. I'm on Threads. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, always putting out content throughout the week talking about gaming news. And then, of course, over on Project XTalk with Save Game Media every single Thursday when we record on Thursdays. Mostly Thursdays, but depends on what we got going on. But mostly Thursdays. It's always a pleasure to sit down with Kev and talk the news of the week. So I appreciate everybody checking that out.
There you go. Mr. Ainsworth.
First, another thank you to both of you for having us on. Had a great time hanging out with you. But you can find me over on Twitter at the Muffin Mon. It's a 1 instead of an I and an O instead of an A. You can follow our podcast network, Save the Game Media, over at Save Game Media on Twitter. Stay up to date with all of our latest. And come hang out with me and Sam on Project X Talk, which is like a nice sister show to XCP, which I love XCP every single week, guys. Gotta say.
Absolutely.
Right with you. I listen to X Talk every single week as well. Usually it's my Friday morning. It's my Thursday night where I start, and then Friday morning I finish it up.
Very nice. Yeah, normally I am standing on a train station listening to XEP on like Monday or Tuesday morning. So having that now I, instead of talking to myself at the train station, I'm actually talking back to you guys. So that's a change of pace. Very nice. Appreciate.
People give them weird looks. They're like,
what? Yeah. I'm normally flailing my arms and yelling. No, but for real, thank you for having us on. It's been a blast.
Very much so. Very much so. Alrighty, everyone. Thank you guys so much for your time, your energies, and including us in your podcast rotation. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care.